Okay, we now have our last and most complicated way to print something, to print a booklet. So again, there's not one right or wrong way to do this. It's just about how you get your booklet printed out. But if you want to print a booklet on Seattle Pacific University's multifunction printers through Secure Print and PaperCut, this would be the best way to do it if you want it to print out front and back and to be centered. So there's a lot of steps, so hang in there and I'll walk you through it. Again, the first thing to do is to make sure you start off your book and make sure that your page size will fit. If you wanted 8.5 by 11-ish book, make sure that each of these pages here each side is just small enough, so 4 by 4 or something like that to fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So again, that starts with your maquette that you build, that you kind of fold up and measure and see how big you want your book to be. Once you get that all set, you just want to go ahead and go up here and go to File, Print Booklet. So the print booklet is, again, something we would do after we've packaged our project and open up that InDesign file, again, from the folder that's in the package, and then we're going to print our booklet. And if you look here in Setup, there's a lot of options, but we want to make sure we choose 2-up saddle stitch if you're going to do the front and back regular booklet here, and you can see the preview that's in there, right? And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we choose, make sure you have this sort of all looking this way, and then you go to Print Settings. But instead of choosing Secure Print, we want to go to the Postscript File. So Postscript File is kind of like exporting this to a PDF. If you have a PC, you can just automatically export stuff to a PDF, but the Postscript file is a foolproof workaround for Mac or anything that you might want to use. So we want to go ahead and check that. You can check print blank pages if you have an awkward number of pages. You want to make sure you double check how that shows up in the preview. And then you can go to Setup, and this is where it's really important. Even if your project is only like a 3x3, a little tiny 3x6 inch book, we still want to print this on ledger paper. And this is the reason why is because that's what helps us center this so that it prints correctly. You also want to make sure that we keep having all of these other, like if you don't want to scale it to fit, right? We want to keep the scale the same size. So we want to center it, make sure everything is centered. So make sure this button is checked here. You can do your marks, so I think that's really important to click the crop marks. You can check your output, make sure it's in CMYK. You can check your graphics. There's a lot of different options in here that you can mess with, but I would just make sure that you have the marks checked. You have the setup, make sure it's on ledger, or some places it's called tabloid, but it's going to be 11 by 17 paper. And then the general thing, make sure that it's that this is all set up here, right? So this is going to kick it out into a Postscript file. So once you click OK here, you should be able to see your preview, and you can see how there's a lot of empty white space around each, the whole booklet. So you're just going to cut this out on the trim marks and fold it down the center. But this will help it so that the front and back lines up, because they don't always line up if you don't do it on ledger paper. So always print on ledger paper. It just, for some reason, it works out. So once that's done, you click Print. It'll ask you where you want to put it. So just make sure you know what it is. I always write something like full print on there. And then click through any of these things that come up. Okay. So now if you go back to your desktop again, let's see, here it is. So there's the file that we just created in Adobe InDesign, and we basically kicked that thing out as a Postscript file. So now to open it, the best way to open it is to just go in here and just control click if you're on a Mac, or right click and go to Open With, and you want to find Acrobat Distiller, which we discovered is the best way to do this. So if you click here on the other button, if you can't find it, you want to go into your applications and find this and just go to Distiller and click Open. If you do that now, it's going to automatically kick this thing out for us. And believe it or not, just like that, it automatically it'll create that and put it where you kind of tell it to. So if you click here, this is the folder, this is the thing that it just made. And you can see that it's designed to be on an 11 by 17 piece of paper. I have my cover, front and back, and then I have pages 1, and it paginates it all out the way it's supposed to. So now when I go to print this out, it's going to print it on an 11 by 17 inch piece of paper. So I'd go to File, print again, and this is all in Acrobat. So this is a PDF that I could take this to Kinko's. I could just put this I can email this to myself or to someone else and have them print it, put it on a thumb drive, upload it to a Kinko's website, whatever you want to do, it'll do that for you. So again, to print from Secure Print, I would want to go in here and make sure that I have page set up correctly so that I'm choosing my tabloid size, which unfortunately that's what they call it in Acrobat Pro as opposed to Ledger. So, but make sure it's 11 by 17. Make sure that it's set up for the orientation to be landscape, and then click OK. Now you'll see that the preview is correct, right? Then I want to go ahead and click Print on both sides of the paper. I want to click Flip on the long edge so that it's, so I don't have them end up being upside down. And then if I click Print on this, it's going to bring up the dialog box, which will then, ask me if I want to pay for it and go through all of the different stages, and it'll end up in your printer sort of queue. Right? So I'm going to cancel this because I don't need to do that for reals now. But so then once that gets done, then you end up with, this is on one sheet of paper on the one side, and then this is on the other side, and your sort of the fold marks that are right here will line up correctly if it's printed on this big old piece of paper this way. But you have to make sure that you do the Postscript file correctly, where you have it centered, where you have gone through and made sure the page size is 11 by 17. So you have to do all those steps. If this isn't working right, there's probably something that got messed up in InDesign when you were kind of printing this to the Postscript file. So, yep, there you go. That is a whole bunch of different ways to print something out. Hopefully this will give you the information you need. There's also a million tutorials on YouTube that will walk you through stuff as well. So hopefully this will give you enough to kind of make this happen. Have a good time. Hang in there. I know it's frustrating, but this is all part of the process, and it's going to help you learn how to problem solve and do a better job of just solving your own trouble when you get into it as you go through this program and into your art career.